Hey guys, let's talk about tonight's season finale of Arrow. And right off the top, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good finale. I thought that it hit all of the big points that needed to be hit in this episode. We had some awesome fight scenes. We had some really good setup for next season. And, I think that the Felicity and Oliver shippers had a moment that they really enjoyed. And I had this look on my face like, really? So let's get into it. Okay, so we start off the top, and of course, they're still right after we pick up right where we left off. And, Oliver is trying to figure out how he's going to take down this crazy man named Slade. And of course, they're hoping that this cure is going to work. And that Roy will be cured with it, and then he can go out and try to cure all of Slade's minions. And it does work. So, but before we leave the lair, Sarah, yay Sarah, shows up with Ra's al Ghul and her bandit of a League of Assassins, and it's ready to be a showdown. Because let's face it, Oliver, Felicity, Diggle wasn't going to cut it. So she needed to get Nyssa on board, and that is obviously where she went when she left and went out of town, and she got back just in time, and she was able to pull in her girl for some help. So I'm glad that all went down. And of course, there was a bit of a struggle between, Oliver wanting to do this without having to kill people, and Nyssa was like, we got to kill everybody. Like, we are at the point of no return, and this is why he's destroying your city, because you're not willing to kill him and take him down. So there was a bit of a struggle between the two of them, and even Quentin was like, I know you want to do this like the right way, and that's without killing anybody, but I think you need to get your your killing spree on, because this man is ruining and destroying your city. So, pretty much everybody was working together, and it was mission, let's get Slade. So, of course, we had Thea, and in the last week's episode, you hear the gunshots go off, you see her shoot the gun, and that's it, and it cuts to black. And my thought was, okay, she shot somebody that was rolling up behind her daddy. Nope, she shot daddy. Of course, he gets up and he pulls the bullets out, and he's like, I'm so proud of you. My son did the same thing last time. He had the gun on me, and he didn't have like the gumption to pull the trigger, but you are definitely my daughter, because you did it. You shot me. I'm so proud of you. It's like, what kind of father-daughter conversation is that? So hilarious. And even Thea's like, what is your deal? Like, I can't even deal with you right now. And she tries to stomp off. And, Thea's she to me is a little bit on the same page with Laurel. Like, I could do without her, because she's been so whiny. I mean, I know her mom died, and I'm not trying to take that away, but she's just so whiny all the time. And so her stomping all over town, mad at her dad, and then mad at Roy. I'm like, okay, girl, whatever. So obviously, we know what's going to go down with her next season. She's obviously going to be trained by her daddy, and she's probably going to become some crazy super assassin. And that's when I'm going to start to like her, because she's going to have more of a personality, and that'll be great. So, of course, the serum worked on Roy, and he got his own little mask in this episode. So him and Sarah and the League of Assassins and Nyssa and Oliver, they go head to head with all of Slade and his minions, and it was a pretty awesome epic fight scene that was going on between all of them down in the tunnels. And of course, they were shooting all the arrows at the minions so that they would get the serum or the cure, and they would obviously not be attacking everybody anymore. So that was a pretty awesome scene, and just watching the choreography in that fighting is stellar. And I know that Arrow, I'm sure, doesn't have a super duper huge budget, but what they are able to accomplish in these fight scenes is pretty good. So I really enjoyed that scene. Then of course we get the obvious misdirect that we knew was going to come at some point in this episode. And last week I was like, okay, is it Sarah that's going to be toast, because they gave Sarah a really good, you're a hero moment, and now it's almost like, yay, she's a hero, boom, let's kill her off. And I was hoping that wasn't going to happen. So thank you, show, for not killing off Sarah. And then when I got to work the next day, I was talking with my colleagues, and we're debating, we're like, is it going to be Felicity? Is it going to be Laurel? Like, why would it be Laurel? He doesn't love Laurel. And then I was like, maybe it's Felicity. And then I was like, but I don't believe, personally, me, because I'm not a huge, like, I think of Oliver and Felicity as like best friends, not as love interests. So, for him to say that he loved her, I was like, I mean, I got what he meant, like, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. But I know how the show wanted us to read it. And so I was kind of like, really? So, of course, that was the big misdirect, so that Slade would take Felicity, not realizing that Oliver found all the cameras in the house and that he gave Felicity the cure. So when he kidnapped, like when he had her and he had the blade up to her neck, Oliver gives this awesome little speech where he's like, basically you're so high on your, like your ego's so huge that you don't even realize the real threat that's right in front of you. And that's when Felicity, reveals the cure and stabs him, I believe, in the neck. And then that leads to an awesomely epic flashback, real-time fight between Slade and Oliver. So we get a flashback to when they were on the ship and, it was hit, so it was sinking and everything's going crazy. Sarah, like, flies down some, like, water shaft, and so she's gone. Oliver and Slade are going toe-to-toe. They're going crazy. At one point, Slade has him right by the neck, and then something falls, or there's an explosion, and then he ends up getting trapped by this beam that comes down, and he's like, taunting Oliver. He's like, I'm gonna do whatever I need to do, and I'm gonna keep my word. And Sarah was just the first, I'm gonna destroy everybody in your life. He's like, your sister, you did. And Oliver just goes, "Meh," and that's how he takes out his eye. And obviously, that is how he assumed that Slade was dead. Wouldn't you? You just stabbed him clear in the eye. It wasn't like a pebble hit his eye and he lost his eye. You stabbed him with an arrow in his eye. So Oliver, there's another explosion and Oliver gets knocked back and into the water, and that's the last we see of the two of them on the ship. So it was I like how they tied in the fight scene between past and present. And, again, Slade just taunting him again, just saying, like, the only way this is going to end is if you kill me. You know that deep down you're a killer. And that is what he's trying to get out of Oliver. He's trying to get Oliver to realize that he is a cold-blooded killer. And that all of those things that, the driving force behind Slade's madness was obviously Shadow and the hallucinations of Shadow. But, he ultimately just wanted Oliver to kill him or, prove that he's a killer. So at the end, when it all goes down and Oliver ends up, like, strapping him up to this post and, he tells Amanda to call off the drone, that everything's under control. And so now Slade ends up being locked up in this purgatory that's this Argus hole. And it's back on the island. It's pretty awesome. So as he's sitting there and he's talking to him, he's like, pretty much telling him, it's because of you that I got to see my family again. It's because of you that I'm still alive. It's because of you. And he's like, it's because of you. You made me a hero. And of course, this is like the last thing that Slade wants to hear, right? Slade still has the vengeance in him, even though the serum now, or the Mirakuru, is out of him. And he is just an angry, angry man. He still wants Oliver to die. And he wants to torture him. He's like, I'm going to keep my word. He's still like yelling at him in this cell that he's in underground. And so, yeah, he's locked up on the island in purgatory. And it's an Argus cell. So should be interesting. I was actually hoping that we'd have an Amanda Slade reunion, because that would bring me back to my Spartacus days with Crixus and Navia, but it didn't happen. So obviously they're going to wait for that lovely moment for season 3, I'm hoping. So, of course, when Oliver comes up from the cell, Diggle and Felicity are there. And earlier on in the episode, Diggle finds out that he's going to be a dad. His wife, Layla, is pregnant. And Amanda's the one who drops this little bombshell. And she's all like, oh, like what you're doing right now is treason, because they basically infiltrated the Argus operation and were pointing guns at Amanda, and Amanda came up badass and had her two guns blazing, and she's like going toe to toe with Diggle and Lila, and then she basically reveals that Lila's with child. Is it a girl or is it a guy? And then she looks at Diggle and she's like, congratulations, you're gonna be a dad. It's just like Diggle's face is like, what? Hilarious. So yeah. So when they come up, and so Oliver's obviously asking Diggle what's this big news, and he's like, yeah, I'll tell you later. And then Diggle's like, I'll give you and Felicity some privacy. So because they, obviously this is the big pink elephant in the room that obviously basically Oliver used her as bait, to get Slade to grab her. And in that moment, okay, here's what I'll say. Does Oliver love Felicity? Yes, absolutely. Is Oliver in love with Felicity? I'm sure that there's a part of him that is in love with Felicity, but I don't think Felicity is the love of Oliver's life. So will I change my mind after season 3? Maybe. We'll see. But the fact that it was definitely not Laurel, and he was like, when Slade was like, I've got the girl you love, he's like, yeah, do what you gotta do. I was like, that was hilarious. And even in that moment when he says to Felicity, he's like, Slade wants to kill the person that I love the most or whatever, and he's like, he took Laurel, and he's basically like, but he got it wrong. And I was just chuckling because I was like, burn, because I can't stand Laurel. And we all know that Laurel is definitely number one, the weakest link on the show. And for him to have said those words, even though it was a ploy, it just makes me laugh even more. So now we have the conversation between Felicity and Oliver, and they're both kind of like, yeah, ha ha ha. When you said you loved me, actually, ha ha for a second there. And he's all like, well, we both sold the moment, and then they just walk off. And I was like, ouch. Because although we know Felicity loves Oliver, we know this. And to me personally, I think that Sarah is closer to being a love for Oliver. But, I know that the show just doesn't want to put all their eggs in one basket, I guess. And now that Sarah has left and gone off to be with the League of Assassins, and she's going of her own free will, it'll be interesting to see what they do when this relationship between Nisa and Sarah blossoms as they're away, fighting and doing combat with one another. So, Oliver, I don't know. We'll see what happens between him and Sarah when all season 3 comes back. But we know that the bond between Felicity and Oliver is real. We know that they're really good friends. And I even thought that she was a viable person to be killed in this episode because he does love her. Is he in love with her? I don't know. But that being said, it was definitely good thrills. And I loved, again, all the hallucinations with Slade in this episode, and just like how deranged he thinks these visions are with Shadow, and how angry she was in these visions. Like, geez, like he's just really got that Mirakuru messed up his brain. So it was good that was like the psychotic driving force behind all of his actions in this season. And it wasn't like sweet Shadow, but it was like this menacing Shadow that was like taunting him and was like, you gotta kill him. He's not, this is all his fault. And it was just like, woo, honey, calm down. And then of course we knew, a few episodes ago that there was something that had happened between Amanda and Oliver, and they didn't dive into it. So in the last moments of this episode, as they're about to get on this plane, Felicity asks a very good question. You've been on this island for 5 years. How did you learn how to fly a plane? And then we get another flashback, which is Oliver waking up in a bed with no shirt on. Thank you very much, CW. And he wakes up, and then these two Asian guys are in the room, and they've got guns, and they're like, come with us. And then they walk outside, and you see this woman walk up with these awesome stilettos on, and it's Amanda. And so she has him in Hong Kong for how long? I have no idea. But obviously that is how these two had become quaint with one another, and I'm very interested to see what these flashbacks lead to. and what the dynamic was between the two of them. So very interesting setup for next season. And when Sarah left, she gave Laurel her jacket. I was like, please don't give her the face mask. So she gave Laurel the jacket, which I think is supposed to be incentive for her to become this new badass person. So I'm sure over the summer they're going to put Laurel through some serious combat boot training, because that girl is like this, and she's going to need to become less of this and more of this if she's going to become part of this team. So we'll see what happens there. And Thea, like I said, left with her dad, leaving Roy high and dry. And, you know, he had a tear coming down his face. All I can say is, hey, go find your friend Sin, because I like her. And I think that you two will make a very interesting couple. Better than you and Thea. But that being said, I did enjoy this season finale. I feel like the setups, like the episodes leading up to this episode, were a little bit stronger for me, just in terms of like the shock and awe and all those moments, than the actual finale itself, because really nobody died. Oh, I did forget that Quentin was tossed around like a rag doll with all these Mirakuru misfits, and he got some internal bleeding. So at the end there, he collapses with Laurel by his side and he's coughing up blood. So clearly he's in some imminent danger. But that being said, you know, we didn't really have any major characters die in this episode. So it lacked a little bit of that, you know, those shock and awe moments that we're always looking forward to in season finales. But they did set up some good things for next season, that is for sure. So let me know what you guys thought of this episode. Did it live up to the hype? Do you think that when we return, Oliver will be pining over Sarah? Will Sarah return with Nisa as her new lover? How badass will Laurel be when we return? Will they make her far more likable in season 3? Let's hope, because not so much leading into from season 1 and 2. How will Thea return? Will she be this crazy little assassin that her dad will turn her into? And she didn't tell anybody that Malcolm Merlin was back. I mean, Oliver knows, I believe. Does Oliver know that he's back? Can't remember. I think he does. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one. Diggle will be having a child. Roy will be angry, as always. But he's, you know, got his anger now under control. And he was pretty badass with that arrow in all those, in that underground tunnel scene. That was pretty cool. So yeah, let me know what you guys thought. I hope we get to see a lot more of Amanda Waller in season 3. And what will they do with Slade? Will he get out? Will there be vengeance? More vengeance in the future for Slade? Will he become a softie after being held up in the cave for who God knows how long without any visitors? So, alright guys, that's it for me. And I will see you when season 3 returns. Okay, bye.